Last week we had one of the artists from the Elgin Fringe Festival also going to be performing this coming weekend. Mm-hmm. Tell us about yourself and what your act is.
Okay, so yeah, I'm based in Boston, but I'm originally a Midwesterner. I grew up in Cleveland, and I went to school actually in Evanston for several years at Northwestern. And I did the Elgin Fringe in, I think it was 2017. I had a good time. So now I'm bringing my new show, which is, I call it a dramedy called The Expiration Date. So it's interesting because you're talking about the rapture. Thing. So is about dealing with, getting a little older and kind of figuring out that I and most of us are mortal. And, so it's kind of how to live with that certainty that we all have a finish line. And at the same time, what does that mean, particularly if, like, for me, you're somebody who doesn't necessarily have traditional faith in the old man up in the sky? I used to live in a communal house, and my housemates called that version of God, Sky Daddy. If we don't have Sky Daddy, what do we do? So, the show really is like snapshots from my life, everything from being hit by a car when I was a kid to a very bad gummy experience the one time I tried it, and so it's kind of a mix of, there's a lot of humor in it, but it also is really about, I think, living a life outside the box where, I've lived kind of a non-traditional life, and I lived in a yoga ashram, a Quaker-connected house. I was raised Jewish. I belong to a Unitarian, mostly gay church. So it's like, what does it mean to kind of explore these things and not really have easy answers, but try to kind of make the most of the time we have left? So, to me, it's really about the human condition because, unless we're in denial, we all are probably mortal. And, again, how do we live with that and kind of make the most of the time, the life that we have? So the show is really designed to be entertaining. And again, there's humor, but it's also really set to kind of raise some questions about what do I believe? And is there something beyond this world and what comes next and stuff like that? So it's really a mix.
You have lived an interesting life.
Again, we're talking to Judah. Is Judah Leblang? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah. And one of the things I mentioned in the show is that, so my father's family, they're originally from Eastern Europe, and like a lot of Jewish families, they had a German name. And in the old country, it was pronounced Leblang.
All right.
And so the name literally means live long.
Oh, there we go.
But men in my family, as I say in the show, typically don't. They tend to, die young but look good doing it. So, that's one of the ironies. I've said, God has kind of a sense of humor because the men in my family historically have not lived long, but I guess they thought maybe the name would bring them good luck. And so, I'm actually now past 65, so, I'm kind of playing with house money here and trying to kind of break the string. But, I've had a consciousness since I was a kid that, people do pass on at some point. And again, living with that knowledge can be challenging.
Again, Judah will be performing at the Elgin Fringe Festival.
Yep.
Elgin Fringe Festival, which returns for its 12th year. It's been running up the weekend. It's going to be running through this Sunday, September 28th. It's a vibrant celebration of artistic experimentation, featuring an uncurated, inclusive, and affordable experience drawing both local and national talents to Elgin's historic downtown. Judah is one of nearly 90 performers who will captivate audiences, showcasing dance, theater, comedy, music, magic, and other innovative art forms. and festival goers can easily walk between venues and enjoy local dining and entertainment. So when you're performing, where will people be able to find you during Fringe Festival?
Yeah, so I'm actually doing 3 shows. 2 are on Saturday at 3 p.m. and 9 p.m. And most of the Fringe shows are, about an hour or under an hour. Mine is an hour. And I'm going to be at the Green Room in the Elgin Art Showcase. So it's an intimate space in the Elgin Art Showcase building, which is 164 Division Street downtown.
And festival entry buttons cost $4. Performance tickets range from free to $12. A festival pass offering access to all events is available for $95. Yeah, and all ticket sales go directly to the artists supporting the creative community. So you're going to be flying again. You're coming all the way from Boston to put this particular show on. What's it like being a touring performer doing events like the Elgin Fringe Festival?
Yeah, it's pretty challenging, which is one reason that most people who do it are not in their 60s. A lot of the performers are in their 20s and 30s. We have to kind of come into a new city and get oriented. Usually the festivals will find us a billet, a volunteer who will put us up for the time that we're in town. So we have a place to stay, but we have to cover our food and our travel expenses. So most people are not doing this, to get rich. I'm like semi-retired, and I also teach writing. I'm primarily a writer, so my main gig is teaching. But the traveling, it's tiring, but at the same time, it gives me a chance to meet new people and go to new cities. I just got back about 2 weeks ago. I did a festival in Halifax, Nova Scotia, up in Canada, and that was my first time in Halifax, and it was a nice chance to kind of explore the city. And I did seven shows there because the festival went on for about 12 days. So, yeah, it's a great experience. And for me as a writer, doing the performance is a chance to really get feedback in real time, because if people read, I have written 2 memoirs, and it's nice if people read my books, but of course I'm not there with them in the moment. And when you're performing in front of a live audience, you get feedback. I get a sense of, okay, are people engaged? Are they laughing? Are they into this? And it's more like a conversation. And that's really where I get the juice. I like doing the performance stuff. So if people want a taste of what I'm going to be doing, I'm doing a 20-minute slot Friday at the farmers market, I guess, which is somewhere, I think, in the center of town. It's Friday. My slot is at 5 o'clock. I think they have several other performers who are also going to be giving people a taste of their work during the market, so people would be able to kind of get a little sample of what I do.
Well, yeah, probably drum up even more interest. People get, you pique their curiosity.
You say
That's
it's
the idea. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go on.
The hope.
Go on.
Yeah. Coming in. I mean, one of the challenges is that, like in Halifax, about half the performers were local, so they have a built-in audience. They have connections, but when I'm going to a new city, if I don't have a base there, it can be challenging, because people will be like, okay, well, this is some guy telling real stories from his life. Why should I care? It's a little bit like picking up a memoir by somebody you've never heard of. But I find that sometimes those memoirs are the most interesting to me, because they're relatable. Like, okay, this isn't a famous person, but this is somebody who survived cancer, or somebody who maybe educated themselves or traveled around the world or whatever. And I find that, regular people, for me, their stories are often more engaging. So what I'm trying to do really in the show is to say, well, here's some things I've experienced where I figured out that I'll have a date. And what I've heard, like from the people who came to the show in Halifax, and last year I did it in Calgary in Western Canada, people told me, yeah, I could relate to that. Yeah, I'm also aging, because even 20s and 30-something, we're all aging, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people would say, yeah, I could relate to that. And the questions about, is there a God? What comes next? Why do I matter? Those kinds of things. I think that ideally stories pull people in.
Well, just a few things you said about your life growing up were very intriguing, very interesting. I mean, the places you've lived, the people you've lived with, the people you've surrounded yourself with, the experiences, just those handful of things you just told us on air. I was like, wow. So I can only imagine as you delve deeper into those in your show, how interesting it would be.
I mean, I think that on the one hand, I've had some experiences that maybe the average person hasn't had, like living in a yoga ashram or a Quaker communal house.
That's where you had me. But then when you hit me with the Quaker communal house, I was like, what would that even look like? I mean, how interesting.
Yeah, and I just lived there for 3 years. I moved out less than a year ago. So at the same time, I think that the more universal theme is this idea. I think I've spent a lot of my life of kind of maybe sometimes feeling like I didn't fit in, or trying to find a place I fit, or trying to find a place to call home. And I think ultimately most of us are looking for the sense of home, which sometimes it's external, but a lot of times I think it's more of an internal feeling of, wanting to fit in or find a place where we feel safe or connected. And I think for me, community and being connected to groups or something outside of myself, that's been, for me, I think, the closest thing that I found to faith. And I say something like that in the show, being part of a group or something. And I think now, especially given all this stuff going on in the country and the world, and there's so much division, that I think it's even more important that, and I think people are really hungry for being connected to other people and finding some sense of community.
And safety.
And safety, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I know the difference being up in Canada where, I mean, they have gun laws, so not to get too political, but you don't really have to be worried about getting shot. They don't have much violent crime because of the way their society is structured. And there was definitely a sense of I think, a certain amount of kindness and civility that I don't always feel here, because I think people they feel safer, they feel more connected, they feel maybe less stress. And so I think there's a hunger for that. I think we're all looking for more connection and a sense of, safety. And, I don't present a lot of answers in the show. It's really designed more to raise these questions and say, hey, I'm trying to figure this out as best I can while I'm still around to figure it out. And can you relate to that? That's really the bottom line,
I love it. Absolutely love it.
Again, we're talking to Judah Leblang, who is Leblang, who's one of the performers at the 2025 Elgin Fringe Festival. You'll not only be able to see him at the festival, but we'll also be putting on a 20-minute preview of his performance at the Farmers Market, which takes place in downtown Elgin every weekend through October 10th. But this weekend, Judah will be there. You can find at South Riverside Drive here in Elgin. You said 5 o'clock is when you're going to be doing that?
Yeah, that's 5 o'clock on Friday, and then my shows are Saturday and Sunday. And
it's, again, a one-man show, a dramedy featuring your life experiences. I'm curious, since you call it a dramedy, what kind of laughs can you mine from experiences living with, Quakers? I'm just curious.
I don't have too much to care about the Quakers. I mean, it's funny because there are a fair amount of Quakers in the Northeast, and but the image I had until I lived in the same house with a group of different people in the mid-'90s. So this was my second time living there, and it's a row house on Boston's Beacon Hill. So it's in this very fancy neighborhood in the center of Boston. But the house itself is kind of very simple. And, I lived in an 8 by 14 foot room. I lived with 18 other people. And we shared the space. And, it's just kind of like living in any kind of, if anybody's lived in a kind of a communal house or shared house, it was kind of like that. Quakers are a lot like, they don't walk around looking like William Penn or the guy on the Quaker Oats box. It's much more, they're kind of like Unitarians. I mean, they're just they're progressive and kind of very accepting of different kinds of people. And historically, they've been pacifists. But most of the people living in the house were not Quaker. It was a mix of everything. But we kind of ran on Quaker principles. So we would have a house meeting every 2 weeks, and we would make decisions. And the idea was you're supposed to come to some kind of consensus, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
It was a way to just live with other people and get a sense of community. And I had been living alone during the first year and a half of COVID, and that was part of my motivation in moving in with this community, because I found living alone during early COVID was incredibly isolating, and that felt like that was not a good lifestyle for me. So being in community felt a lot healthier. It was also challenging. I was the oldest or second oldest person in the house most of the time I was there, and a lot of my housemates were in their 20s and early 30s, and I was, over 60. So on the one hand, it was great because they had lots of energy. On the other hand, I had to learn to speak kind of like, millennial and Gen Z, and get used to they, them pronouns and a lot of other stuff that was not part of my baby boomer, lexicon. So that was also interesting,
Have you heard? I mean, at least you're not dealing with the middle schoolers who are going 6, 7, 6, 7. That's the one thing that we're dealing with here, and on our morning show. Where can people learn more about you? Follow you on social media? Do you have a website? Any social media channels that folks can learn more about you at?
Yeah. So my website, which should be updated, but I have some video clips and some samples of my writing. It's just my name, so it's JUDAH LEBLANG. JudahLeblang.com is my website, and I have Facebook and Instagram basically also under my name at Judah LeBlang. And the main Elgin Fringe site is, there's connection to, if people just Google Elgin Fringe, they can, you can get tickets online, as well as they have an office. I think it's Side Street Studio Arts downtown. They call it Fringe Central, where people can also get tickets for all the Fringe shows.
And again, this is Judah LeBlang, who's going to be performing at Elgin Fringe Festival this weekend, a one-man show exploring life of living a very interesting life. And you said the show is how long again?
So it's just under an hour. It's about 50 minutes. And if you ask about the humor, one of the humorous stories in the show is about the one time that I tried gummies, and I was already past 60, and the substance had just become legal in Massachusetts, and I ended up at this place called the Hemp Fest, kind of by accident.
Mm-hmm.
I see where this is going.
Yeah, I experienced, when I was like at Northwestern back in the 70s, I would maybe smoke a little bit, but I forgot that would usually be just a few puffs on a joint, and sensitive to any kind of, I have one beer and I'm flying.
So you're a cheap date.
Yeah. So I had and I took a gummy because this guy who was selling them was like, yeah, well, the whole package is about as much marijuana as 3 or 4 joints. And again, I had kind of forgotten that back in the day, marijuana might be different, and also that I would just take a few puffs.
Uh-huh.
So I popped one, and after 20 minutes, I popped another one, and a whole series of unfortunate events ensued from that. So that piece, I was gone like for 5 hours. I mean, it was
Wow.
All right.
I was in bed for the next 2 days after that. So, yeah. So, life gives us, material, and it's up to us to work with it. So, So there's definitely some humor in it.
That's Judah Leblang at Elgin Fringe Festival this weekend. Watch his preview at Farmers Market on Friday at 5 o'clock. Thanks so much for joining us, Judah, and I'm wishing you a great show this weekend.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care now.
Have a good day.
You too.
Man, he